I'd actually like to start the conversation there, just talking about performance, and then your best performance ever so far, being at Abs Series 7. So I know since then you've competed at Abs 9 and then at the Abs Pro. So we're rolling all the way back to August. It was August 2021, I believe, wasn't it, for Abs 7?
Yes, yeah.
So what do you think went into that prep specifically that gave you that 900 total?
Yeah, so I learned I have a coach, Stan Efferding, and I have multiple coaches. Stan is on the nutrition kind of performance side, and I've been following the lad for fucking years, taking in all his videos and everything like that. And I was reached out to him, wanted to work with him. And I remember watching a lot of his podcasts. I would watch probably a lot of what he says like 20 times over. Because you get a new bit each time you rewatch it, versus the first time you get it in. And he was saying that what he did with Mark Bell. And I was like, that sounds good. It's a win-win, because for my job, I can't be a big fat fuck. I have to be in shape, you know what I mean? Otherwise, it's like I'm a fat loss coach. It doesn't make sense if I'm fat, you know what I mean? So over COVID, I beefed up and I was like, I'll go up to 140. Lads at the gym say I need to get bigger and all that kind of stuff. So somewhat I agree, but if it's 140 of pure tissue, it's very different. That wasn't the case. I got fat as shit. Beer belly, dad bod, looked like fucking death. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Kept justifying that I was in shape when I was. I was just beefy and fat. Could hide it with the body hair. And then I watched Stan bring Mark Bell down from 340 pounds all the way down to like 250. So a lot of weight. Good night and day difference in terms of physique. He lost strength doing that. And then what he did, this is what I took from the video, and it worked for me, exact same thing. Got in shape, got lean. Now keep in mind, I'm enhanced. Obviously, Mark Bell's enhanced, so that is another variable that needs to be thrown into the mix. You naturally might have to draw that out a bit longer. Might be a bit of a slower process. You might not lose fat as aggressively, you know what I mean? But if you're on gear, you can hold muscle a lot more. So I went down from 143 to 113, and that's what Mark Bell did. He went down, lost a bit of strength, and then rebounded back up, went up like 10 pounds or something after getting in really good shape. His performance was through the roof, and he hit a PB at a lighter body weight than he was at 340 versus 250. He was stronger at 250. And I did the exact same thing. I went from 143 down to 113 over probably 6-7 months or something. Obviously not rushed, but just taking the fat down, got in good shape. And went from 113 back up to 121, gradually, with good quality food, sleep, everything dialed in as normal. And the PBs just were flowing in as I added weight to my frame, because it was like tissue being added. Obviously, the gear combined with that as well helped too, you know. But keep in mind, I've done multiple meets before that. And I've done water cuts, similar cycles, similar amount of food, similar amount of sleep, all that kind of stuff, all the similar variables. It wasn't some sort of like Olympic level training camp difference compared to the other comps. The massive difference was my recomposition, where I was more of an athlete. I was in better shape. And straight away when I got leaner, I think that's why I do with all the guys I work with as well. Not that it's powerlifting is the goal necessarily, but if the goal is to put on as much muscle as possible and perform as best you can, it's get in shape first and then grow. A lot of guys try growing and getting stronger when they're already carrying a load of fat. And I've done that countless times. Nothing comes of it. You just put on more and more fat.
Yeah.
You know?
Like there is that image that you've shared of yourself during that period of time when you were obviously bulked up, and like you're still muscular, you know, you still got a big chest, beefy, big arms, but you're just carrying so much extra fat tissue, and the difference is night and day. And I think that's an important thing, and I do think powerlifters specifically can sometimes lose the forest for the trees, because if they do go into a fat loss phase and they do see that initial drop in performance, this isn't working, I need to stop. When realistically, even thinking of long-term health, for example, I think there's a culture of not doing cardio in powerlifting. There's a culture of bigger is always better. And I like, as you mentioned,
with muscle.
Exactly. I think there is a point where, like, we're not trying to be bodybuilders necessarily, but I think you do also need to respect that you're supposed to be something of an athlete.
Yeah.
So that whole recomposition led to your massive 900 kilo total. And that was comprised of a 335 kilo squat, a 205 kilo bench, and a 360 kilo deadlift, which I believe is still your best in competition, 360. So the squat has definitely improved since then. I believe you've gone on, it was 345, 342.
342, yeah.
Sound. Yeah, I remember. I think I commentated that.
Yeah. I listened back after. I was like, as yourself and from British Strength magazine.
Yeah, that's right. Alexander Clark, man. That was a great day, man. That's wild. Like, I do that every comp. I loved that. That was so much fun.
You were very good, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. That's the old pro wrestling background. But like, that's the thing. Like, I mean, that performance there. So is this the one you won? Is this the one you podiumed on? Because I know you won an Ab Series Pro-Am, am I right?
I have not won yet. But
you've podiumed.
Podiums, yeah. I will win one day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, just gotta keep the head down. The thing about powerlifting is how long you can stick with it, because people drop off. That's the thing, and you have to survival of the fittest in that way. You know, I don't have the best genetics for it at all, but I could be a relentless fucker with sticking to things nonstop, like obsessively, you know what I mean? And that's what's going to carry me through, hopefully, to eventually a win one day. You know?
Well, some of the lads you've podiumed against are like some of the best lifters in the country.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And in Europe, even.
Yeah.
So, and that would be one thing I would say as well. Like when I look at a lot of these guys that do, like Jesse Moran, for example, phenomenal lifter.
Absolutely,
he's won Ab Series, but like very much the gym and powerlifting is a massive part of what his life is, and that's not to take it away from him because he is one of the best because of it.
Yeah.
But like I think other lifters don't take it. And I've said this about you before and I've said it to you. I have a massive amount of respect for the way that you can balance so much. Whereas, you know, you're a high level powerlifter, probably one of the, definitely I think within the top 5 in the country. And then you also like run your own business, the Better Man Project. You have a really good online presence as well. So, and then you've recently become a dad.
Yeah.
So balancing all these things, I think is a better example of, you know, a form of mastery and discipline than strictly just, you know, being somebody that has the biggest total in the country or lifts the most amount of weights. So like, do you think then like later on, so going into the later competitions, do you think like those other things have in any way, I don't mean hindered your performance, but do you think those extra considerations, because your business has obviously been doing excellently over the last while, and then becoming a dad, and your other things as well, like I know you've recently started morning rucking and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, do you think these other things are things that maybe initially might take those 5 kilos or so away, and then maybe in the long run will pay off?
Yeah, so with being a dad or a newborn, like there was some nights I was sleeping on the floor. We had to move apartment to get an extra room. Like that's made life 10 times easier. Before, during one prep, I was literally sleeping on like a hard carpet floor. Not that it's some sort of like woe is me story. I was choosing to do it because the baby was waking up. I was like, I'll try sleeping here, get a better night's sleep. But shit like that, I'm not wearing the CPAP. I'm not doing everything as dialed in as the previous 900. So that would have been tough, you know? Absolutely no regrets at all. Like having a kid is, in my opinion, 10 times more important than any fucking total. And if you're like putting off having a child for some sort of like self-fulfilling prophecy bullshit, like it's the stupidest fucking thing. You can do both at once. You know what I mean? It might be a bit of a setback compared to normal. I might have had an extra few kilos in the tank. Absolutely worth being a dad over that. If you want to have a kid, I mean, you know, so I would recommend getting to that sooner. Trying to do them both at the same time, though, can be tricky. That was the first comp. And then, with work, man, it's like anything. You have good weeks, bad weeks, up and down. Like it's like running any business. It hits you in the fucking gut sometimes, you know. Times you feel great, times you feel like shit, up and down, like anything. You have a good lifting block, same thing. Hitting PBs, fucking frozen for a year on a lift, you know what I mean? Same thing. And they would pile up. But what I do is I kind of have like not three personalities. That sounds a bit odd, but I would separate them. And the one it's like powerlifting Ben, dad Ben, and business Ben, you know. And then when I'm working, I'm like, they would kind of spill into each other. Where I'm like, I'm off here to fuck around. Let's fucking do this shit. Like Bonnie would nearly be like, calm down. Like to me with work and stuff. And with training, I'd have a bit of a laugh, but I'd still be like, let's fucking go, you know. But when it's dad time, I'm like a giant baby. It's like fucking Disney dad type of shit, just messing around.
She's a very good baby.
Yeah, you know.
Like, I always get I get a laugh when she comes in, when you're at the comp, she's got the big massive headphones on her. Like obviously very smart, but it looks it's very funny. But I actually think that's really good, like as a form of socialization for a young baby, and as she grows up to be around so many different people. Like you've seen with Jay Farrant, the owner of Abs, and his son. Yeah. Like he so easily interacts with so many people. Yeah. Is that something you're conscious of as she gets older? Like, do you want to like foster that?
Yeah, well, like I want her to be like tough in a way, not like fucking like butcher, if they can say that word. But I say it in the sense that still a ladylike and everything like that, but not take shit. You know what I mean? I think when you go to areas like powerlifting meets, it's a good bit of exposure to that stuff. Like I'd like for like I think Jay has Jessie doing like jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. I'd like that as well, where she can handle herself, not go out of her way to be like a dickhead to people. Because you know there's some people like gym bullies and shit that do it just to be imposing on others, more so being able to handle herself. You know, so when she's around at powerlifting meets and stuff like that, I think that's it's like a freak show. You're seeing the most extreme people you can probably meet.
Well, I think especially when you're younger, the more different environments you're exposed to in these like safe circumstances like that. Like powerlifting has a lot of different mad characters, big people, small people, strong people, people with like purple hair, people with shaved heads, people with tattoos all over their body, heavy metal music, fire breathers. Like if you can get exposed to that young and normalize it, you're probably less likely to be like overstimulated by these things as you get older. Like that is one thing I love about Jay with the way he has Jesse. He has him exposed. So like Jesse will come up to me and ask me things about his Nintendo Switch. I'm like, I don't know. It's cool that he feels so comfortable just to like engage with people.
Well, for the confidence, like
for sure. Like he's never. I don't think he's a kid. I don't think he'll ever have trouble like making friends or getting girlfriends or whatever for that exact reason. But like you said, you know, you obviously along that path later on had to make sacrifices to facilitate naturally, like Bonnie was having a baby. And I think that you're absolutely right. Those short-term sacrifices, not like having to sleep on the floor, not use a CPAP machine, like you're a dad. You know what I mean? And this gives you, and I agree, like if that's something people want, delaying it for like these arbitrary reasons is kind of silly,
nuts, It's obviously different now if it's a female powerlifter, because like she has to physically get pregnant.
Sure,
I wasn't carrying the baby, so I get to go to the gym where Bonnie couldn't, And as well, just one thing obviously you want to shine in on, when you were saying how do I balance the three, Bonnie is like the foundation there. She's it keeps everything in order, keeps everything calm, all that kind of stuff, tends to the things that I'm shit at, so it's a yin and yang. I have strengths where she'd be weaker, and vice versa, you know what I mean? So we complement each other very, very well,
And I think that is the one thing sometimes people lack, is having that support network. I know you've meant, like, we're going to get onto it later, but having a good crew of people in the gym and things like that, people you can rely on, but like having somebody who's like your cheerleader or your assistant or someone that is in your corner with things like that, like whether it's your business, your lifting, or like, having your baby, you know what I mean? Like those things are the life-changing things. All those little micro stresses they can take away makes massive differences to people who are like yourself, so entrepreneurial, so driven, so ambitious. If somebody can, like that, helping make your food, I've seen her like bringing you back your drinks and things at the comps. Like just knowing that that's not something you have to think about being there. She's going to look after that. That's amazing.
You know what I have a meal in my car right now that while I was getting back to clients, she was putting in the flask for me. So it's
it's those tiny little things, those little 1% differences over a long period of time that facilitate you being who you are, whether it's wearing the dad hat, the powerlifter hat, or the business owner hat. So I love that is something you're highlighting, because like naturally, like I see it online. I know you mention it a lot. Like Bonnie is like one of the biggest drivers behind what helps you be successful. Like naturally, it's like that. Like you might be steering the ship, but you need to have somebody in your corner to help you run all the other background stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's great that I know, but it's great to shout these people out and let them know they're appreciating, they're loved for what they do.
Yeah.
But then, like, switching over, looking at your business side, right? Yeah. So the Better Man Project. I know you've had like other business ideas in the past, but talk me through this. Where did this stem from? Better Man Project. What's the motivation behind it? If we had somebody listening or watching now and have seen it before, if you had to give them, like, break it down for me, how would you explain it to them?
It's like basically trying to train guys that be similar to myself, where they like act like type A, kind of, they give a shit. They, like yourself as well. They want to do things, want to grow their business, they want to do well, but they just don't know how to get in shape. And obviously being in shape and looking the part is important. If you're trying to be like a fucking direct, like you're an executioner, you get shit done, you know what I mean? No one's going to take you seriously if you're fucking morbidly obese, because it means clearly your shit isn't in order if you can't even look after yourself. You know what I mean? So when you can look after yourself, you can tend to look after many other things outside of that, 9 times out of 10. I remember it's like Sun Tzu or something said, it's like it's you can manage yourself, you can manage an army or something, you know, that type of thing. So I'm butchering the quote, but same thing.
Paraphrasing.
Exactly, yeah. And what I know how to do originally was I was obsessed with bodybuilding, get myself in shape. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. Then I kind of realized, I don't really have the genetics for it. I'm not that good. I kind of like being stronger. So powerlifting kind of took over and do a mix of the two. Then I got into personal training because I was like, I need a job. And I was bouncing and selling weed for a little bit. So I was kind of shit. I think I was fucking Pablo Escobar. And then I was like, okay, this is a bit stupid. I was leaning on a wall one day when I was bouncing, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I was like, all my friends are in college, they're all doing like proper things. This is a bit retarded. So then I went down the road of getting a personal trainer course, where people were telling me to do that for years. Friends, family egging me on, everything like that. And a friend, Connor McDermott, was one of the ones who was really like, man, you gotta do this. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know so much stuff, always asking me advice and stuff. And then went into that, did in-person personal training, which again, I was attracting people, just gen pop. And it was fun. Like, I enjoyed it for a bit. The split shifts though were fucking killing me. The 6 to 9, the 6 to 9. I did that for like 2 years and I was like, okay, it's tiring. Bonnie started doing Peachy Collection, which was the legging company we used to run. And then that did well 1 month. And I was like, okay, Savage, we'll get into that. Got kind of sick of it. We lived down in Termonfeckin for like a year in Louth, and we tried to build it from there. And it was just the type of thing where it caused so much stress, because we had the foundation of the personal training to pay our bills. And then we brought in a new business, made a bit of money. You don't want to take the money out of the business while it's growing. So we were taking it out to live off. And then it was just a shit show. Okay. I was like, we're like, fuck this. We don't actually enjoy this. And Bonnie was leading that, where she didn't really enjoy, she doesn't like that kind of stuff. She doesn't like to lead things. Whereas I would be good in that regard. So that's why we work well together. We scrapped that. COVID happened, doing in-person personal trainer kind of came back. So my friend again was like, why are you not doing this? Same guy again. And thanks, Connor, by the way. And if he listens to this. And then I went into online coaching during COVID. So again, COVID, as much as it was a detriment to nearly everyone, I fucking hated it, don't get me wrong, but that was the benefit. I got into shape during it, and I got the online coaching up and going. Okay. So then I was like, okay, we need to work with Phil Graham. He's my business coach, and he would teach me a lot on kind of how to, because he was actually my first bodybuilding coach. He got me like proper jacked. So I had the trust there straight away. He built a massive online business, and now he has a massive online coaching business where he teaches online coaches how to build their business. So I learned from him how to build a business from there, how to dial it in, who I want to work with, all that kind of stuff, and attract the right people, which is what I'm doing now. And that's how the Better Man Project kind of kicked in. And why I wanted to do it is that, honestly, for myself, it's like I like the idea, again, as I said, jacked, in control, looking good. And then as I attract people like that and they get those results coming through and they're telling me the feedback of like, holy shit, I feel amazing, I'm looking the best I've ever looked, all this kind of stuff, you get fulfillment from that, you know? So it's just trying to attract those type of guys that don't know how to get in shape, that love training. They've been in the gym for like 1 to 2 years. They're running their business, doing all that kind of stuff. They don't have time to sit down and fucking like when we were 16 on Arnold Schwarzenegger's program, all that kind of shit. Like
bodybuilding.com.
Yeah, you know, hours and hours doing that. And I did that for 8 years before I got a coach. And then, so I just tidy all up for them, dial up everything they're already doing, and then the results just flow in from there, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got the receipts. You can see it if you look on your Instagram page, the pinned posts. You know, you've got the receipts to prove it works. You know what you're doing. And I very similar story to you. COVID, as much of it was a pain in the ass, and it was naturally for people like us who are in those interpersonal roles, dealing with people, to have that taken away was such a massive like knock. But like that, same as myself, made me take a step back and say, what am I doing here? How can I change this? And that's when I actually started online coaching as well.
Yeah.
I was actually really not like against online coaching, but I thought like too many coaches, they're in the business 3 months and they decide they want to start helping people online because they just think, that's handy.
Yeah.
But you have to have, like you did for so long, those 2 years, and then you went out and came back. You've developed that massive base of working with the general public, seeing, because you see mad stuff. You know what I mean? You see like somebody who has, like, I've trained a guy like torn meniscus, a friend, I have it now, but a friend of mine trained a girl who had one of her hands was missing. You know what I mean? So like, these things that if you can navigate those things, helping people online becomes way, it's much more
You need a
simple.
base, man. 100%.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think that would be my advice to anybody that's an aspiring trainer. Put the work in on the ground level, you know, get in the trenches, learn how to do it, work with as many people as you can. Doesn't matter. And everyone's like, I want to be sports specific, I want to be strength and conditioning coach. Nah, you don't.
No.
Athletes are a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But, you know, learn to do that first, and then you can, like you've done, you've managed to, you know, get that higher resolution view of who you want to work with, and it pays dividends. And I completely agree with what you said. There's conversations I've had with Dan here in Primal about like, there's so many like adult men who they're like maxing out in certain parts of life. You know, they've got the high powered job, high paying job, flash car, but like they look like shit. They feel like shit. Their home life is miserable because they look and feel like shit. They've no energy at the weekends for their kids or their wife or whatever, and things are crumbling around them. But, you know, well, I've got the flash car and I've got the, you know, 6 figures.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you can't take care of yourself, you've no proof that you can take care of anything else.
Yeah.
I know you know the value of it. You've mentioned Phil Graham there. You mentioned Stan Efferding earlier on. The value in having a mentor or a coach, I think, is something people really don't get.
No.
You know? Like, I've had that before, and I'm sure you have as well. Like, I've had people say, why does a trainer need a trainer? I'm like, Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest boxers of all time. So was Mike Tyson. They had coaches.
Yeah.
You know, all the most successful people in the world have someone that handles one element of their business for them. And you have Bonnie at home. I don't think those things can be overstated. So, coming off the success of the Better Man Project, like we can see that when we look online. Like you've got like there was like a core group of lads initially. I remember I kept seeing the same faces, these jack dudes.
Yeah.
But it's like branched out so much from there. What's the plans for it going forward? If you were looking into 2023, 2024, where would you like to take it?
Like honestly, the long term goal again, short term is to get like over like 200 guys. Not short term, medium, whatever you want to call it. You know, hit 200 or so, and then have coaches under me with similar kind of like mindset that would want to help people like that. You know what I mean? So it's like Nick Mitchell has, you know, Ultimate Performance gyms all over the Marbella and the UK and all. I like his personality. I don't really mesh with, but his philosophy and approach of actually getting like the no bullshit. This is how you get a fucking result. You know what I mean? This is what you have to do. Don't fuck around. You know what I mean? There's no mindset bullshit and that kind of stuff. It just isn't me. I like kind of black and white. This is what you need to do. He's very like that, and he has a team of dudes under him that are like that too. That would be then the long-term kind of goal, is to build a big crew of guys that know how to get results for people, and they each have like 50 clients each or something like that, you know?
Do you think you'd ever like hold something like Phil Graham does like a summit, like where you have like all your dudes come together?
Yeah, I've never been a seminar guy. It's not my thing. I have like ADHD, so with one-on-one I'm good. But if there's 20 people in the room, I'm like, blah, 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 like scanning everyone's eyes. I feel like I'm engaging with each person. I might get overwhelmed. I can't think as clearly and everything like that. So
like too much stimulation.
Yeah, you know, where a lot of people say not to look at anyone, just focus on one thing and it goes away. But it's not maybe, you know what I mean? It's a like a public speaking type of thing, potentially, you know. Right now, though, it's not needed for what I'm doing, you know, where I'm at with it. But if it's ever in a position where it's needed, I can impact more people, then yeah, 100%, you know.
Well, I think like that with most businesses. I think sometimes what people tend to do is they'll see what other people are doing. Like, maybe I should do that. It's like, but does that really hold core to what you do? That's why I ask, you know, like, because if that's not necessarily something that drives Better Man Project forward, it's fine. Yeah. Like from an external point of view, obviously, like I can only see what's online, but like it looks very good, looks very successful. And it definitely, oh, my pleasure, man. It seems like you have, like, it seems to attract those like that, those high-powered entrepreneurial guys. Like, I need somebody who's already done all the research and the homework because I'm too busy to do that.
Yeah,
I need someone who's going to help me get my act together. And I suppose you found that is commonly the type of people you get. Like, you have a very clear view of who you want.
Well, you get 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a mix of a whole host of different people, you know. But the majority of them, it's not that they're all like fucking CEOs of Apple. It's not like that level, you know. It could be like one guy's an electrician, he owns an electrician company, you know what I mean? It's like that type of stuff. It's like they're in businesses, they're running it like that, they're trying to do the best they can in life. And I think the physical aspect obviously ties into that too. You know what I mean? It makes it even easier as well. When you look after your health and you're eating well and you're sleeping well, you can perform even better at the other tasks. So it's like, it's just amplifying everything is what I want to do, you know? And it's, so it's those like guys that come in. Now, don't get me wrong, you get the odd person who kind of might look at the before and after and kind of go, oh, I want that, but then they don't realize it involves work. It's like anything. I remember Dan Kennedy said this years ago. He's like, you can have 10 billionaires in a room and give them a project to do, and you would think a billionaire is hyper proficient and do it all. 3 won't do anything. 3 will do halfway, and then the remaining 4 will nail it to a T or something like that. Like it doesn't matter what situation you're in, that always happens, you know.
But I'll still see this in like commercial gym setting if I do take on one-on-one clients. For some people, it's they recognize change needs to happen, but to them, the most work they're willing to do is hire and pay a trainer.
Yeah.
After that, it's like, well, now it's your problem.
Yeah,
you know, they think that's the silver bullet that's going to change.
Into the gym, like
exactly. Yeah. But even that, some of it, it's like, oh, I have to come to the gym when you're not here.
Yeah. It's a step in the right direction for people that obviously are like, if you're relying on a couch all day and inactive as fuck, and then you're all of a sudden joining a gym, that's a step in the right way, you know what I mean? But you have to keep making steps. You don't just join the gym and leave it there, you know what I mean? You have to evolve past that and go, okay, what else do I need to take care of? You know, there's always something to work on. And every time you get a little bit better, it gets a little bit harder to get better. You know yourself with powerlifting. Every time you get stronger, it's that much harder to get stronger. It's the same thing.
I've had this conversation with Jake where I don't think people realize. I think somebody had said something to him, but I don't want to like name names because I don't actually remember who it was. But and I'm going to paraphrase. I'm going to like we said, I'm going to butcher a little bit. But basically, the person implied that a 200 kilo squat, right, was like half as hard as a 400 kilo squat. I'm like, no. Like a 400 kilo squat's not twice as hard as 200. There is an infinite gulf between 200 and 400 kilos on a bar. Like the work you have to get to 200, don't get me wrong, it's not a small weight to have on your back. But like the majority of people will never experience what it's like to have 400 kilos on their shoulders. Like it's a very, very small subset of people that will ever be there. And the work it takes to get from being somebody who can squat 200 to somebody who can squat 400 is probably more work than either most people are willing to do or most people are even capable of doing. Yeah. And I think it's the same with anything. I actually say that I use this as an example a lot with people when it comes to like how people's, you know, you meet people where they are. Like I'd much rather deal with somebody who is going to the gym and just walks on the treadmill than trying to convince somebody to get off the couch and into the gym. Because it's a much easier bridge to gap to bridge if somebody's already in the gym to say, come downstairs and lift some weights with me, than, you know, to get them off their ass and even just stepping foot into a gym. You know, I think not just even on a motivational level, I think it's like a lot of people like have preconceived notions of what a gym is, whereas you kind of start to break that barrier and dispel it when you step foot in the building, even if you don't like the weight section. Like we have that with abs. People think it's this massively intimidating place, but like I think everybody's quite sound. Like don't get me wrong, I know some of the lads, especially on their cycles, can be a bit bananas. But like take even for yourself, for example, like you're big, strong Jack dude, but you're quite personable, quite approachable. I think that's why your business is a success. And I think people, when they actually get to meet you in person, you know, I think you're not, I would not call you an incredibly intimidating person. I think you're a really sound person.
Thanks very much.
No problem at all. But like even Dan said it, he's fucking really down to earth, super nice guy.
Brilliant,
and like that, like success leaves clues. You know, no one gets super far in life by just being an asshole.
No way, man. Yeah.
You know? And I think that's
maybe drug dealers, and like if you're in a horrible world, you know what I mean? Like a pimp game or something, you have to be a dick, you know? But,
by you know, product of their environment.
Yeah.
But like, especially in the jobs we work in where you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And like I say this all the time, you know, 5 years down the road, if you put 50 kilos in somebody's deadlift, but you're an asshole, they're going to tell people you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Whereas you might not have made much of a tangible difference in the 8 to 12 or 16 weeks you were working with them. But if they really enjoyed working with you, thought you were a sound person, they learned some things from you. Like, he was sound.
There was one big thing I learned tying into this, where it's people always remember how you made them feel, not what you said, what you did, or anything like that. You can squat 400 kilos. Honestly, like, I don't even know Ed Cohn's. I know he's a very good powerlifter and one of the best of all time. I don't know his best numbers at all. Even Stan Effring's, I don't know his best numbers. And I worship the lad in terms of information. But because of how he makes me feel in terms of what I'm learning from him and how he presents himself and how he acts, I connect with that. You know what I mean? And then that's why I'm kind of like, I would talk about the man quite a lot. I talk about like Jordan Peterson, these kind of things. You don't remember all the things they say, but you remember that what you learned from them and how they made you feel at that time.
You said something else earlier on as well. You were talking about Stan Efferding, and you could watch the same piece of information like 20 times, but every time you might get something different from it. And I think that's as you mature and develop and your ideas come into higher focus, you can yield more information from the same content. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I've said it to clients before, like where they could have been with another trainer or going to the gym for years, and they might have heard the same piece of advice 10 times, just 10 different ways. And it was the 11th time, just the way I phrased it. It's not that I'm a genius. They were just in the right place and they had enough trust in me that this was the time for them to actually implement what the advice is.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a massive amount of what it is. It's not like that. I'm sure when people reach out to you, the majority of them have already recognized that change needs to happen.
Yeah.
And this is the action they're willing to take. And I think like that, you've got the social proof that it can work. And I know like you've got like a very specific, like you like people that have like a year's experience in the gym at least. Yeah. You know, you're particularly trying to work with men in like positions where they kind of need to get a result. Like, you know, they might be under time constraints, might have a family, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's they know you're speaking to them. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things I think a lot of other coaches and things could take. It's like, don't be afraid to know who your market is if you've been in it a while, you know?
Well, I like to work with guys who like going to the gym.
Yeah.
Like, because again, if I have to like, it's like, oh, I missed 7 sessions last, it's like, what the fuck? Like, you don't even enjoy training. It's like, why are you here? It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Whereas if you enjoy what you're already doing and not getting a return from it, that's where I jump in and tidy it up. You know what I mean? So it's, anyone I work with, it's absolutely essential. They actually enjoy training. They enjoy lifting weights. I won't, like marathon runners and shit, I do not knock on the door. It's not going to open, you know what I mean? And that's with any coach. Anytime you're going to get a coach, make sure you're actually interested in what they do rather than just seeing the result. It's like the same as being an entrepreneur. It's like everyone sees like a Ferrari or a mansion or the bimbo wife, whatever the fuck it is, you know what I mean? And they don't realize the countless hours and like heartache and stress and ups and downs and the anxiety and the depression, all of this shit that the person had to go, unless they were inherited, obviously, but majority of people don't. I think like 80% of millionaires are self-made. It's the same type of thing. All the bullshit just to get to that first million is fucking insane. The climb is so hard, but everyone just sees the flash shit. That's why you have loads of entrepreneurs. They have like entrepreneur in their bio. It's like, what do you do? It's like, oh, I live at home. It's just like, what are you doing? Like that makes you an entrepreneur. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So it's there's a lot of that. It's Instagram. You know what I mean?
Do you think then? So you mentioned there like all the hardship you have to kind of go through to get to a place of success. Like if we roll it back to when you were a lot younger, right? When you were like, what was I know you've mentioned before on your Instagram, like you had to overcome a lot of like anxiety and things like that as a teen and like coming into training and things like that. Did you have mentors when you were younger or do you think that was part of the issue?
More, honestly, what it was father figures. So now I had a dad until I was about 17 and he passed, but he would have drank. He was an alcoholic. Not like your stereotypical like wife beating, not that kind of shit, but more so like he would keep it to himself. He knew it was bad. He'd sit in a room on his own and binge, you know what I mean? That's what he was like. So the anxiety stemmed from that, where it was kind of like, oh, where is he going to be next? Is he going to embarrass the family? All that kind of shit. That's where I think my anxiety generated from, you know? Because my mom would be like, oh God, he's out again and that kind of stuff. And I'd be out with my friends and the fear of like seeing him stumbling around like a homeless person when it's meant to be your dad, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it stemmed from there. And then I started looking to like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these kind of guys who are a bit older. And I was kind of like, okay, I don't want to end up like my dad did, even though financially he was very successful. He came from a normal background in Galway, not below average, significantly, like 12 kids or some shit. Wow. So obviously he had his own trauma with not enough attention from his dad. It was something in that realm, you know what I mean? And I saw that happen. I saw the pattern kicking in and I was like, okay, his dad was a dick to him. Not that my dad was a dick to me, but he is still suffering from his dad. You know what I mean? And I could see that happening. And I was like, this ain't happening to me. Like I'm breaking the cycle. So that's why I barely drink. I don't really even drink. Smoke a bit of weed, but I do not drink. And I know I have that like demon in me in terms of like addictive personality. So I pour it into areas like building a business, trying to be a good dad at home and having fun with that. Like dopamine seeking things. We all do it. That's why we're doing a podcast right now, because it's actually enjoyable to do it. And then people listen to it because they enjoy the information they're getting. Same thing, dopamine producing activities. I try to shy away from the bad boy shit and go for the good boy stuff. Even though I would take steroids and I would smoke weed still, but they contribute to the overall picture of what I'm trying to avoid and what I'm trying to actually become. You know what I mean? So I would look at like Jordan Peterson, Stan Efferding, Dave Ramsey, all different areas that they're in, like financial, business, bodybuilding, all this kind of different stuff. Life, again, Jordan Peterson, we were talking about earlier on. And that's why everyone jokes Jordan Peterson's like the internet's dad. You always see the top comment saying that. It's like, oh, thanks, dad. It's like, I was pissing myself laugh because I resonate with that. It's like I'm listening to people where I learned about what not to do from mine, and I learned how to do from others. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where it came from more than anything, you know?
Well, I think that's what you mentioned there is like, even though your dad was around, he wasn't like this strong masculine pillar in your life.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead to a lot of anxiety because you don't have that security or support from that side of your life. And I think that's for a lot of kids in Ireland specifically, and now in this modern age, I think there is definitely a deficit in strong masculine figures. And that's why people like Jordan Peterson, it was obviously more like, is more of the mental side, you know what I mean? Like he represents like the thoughtful side less so. That I think that's why like people like Andrew Tate blew up.
Yeah.
Because he represented this super strong, masculine, secure, confident, lacking figure that was in society. So that's
there's a void.
Exactly, you know? And I think, for example, I think you're somebody who probably to a degree with your guys in your Better Man project, I'm sure you're serving as something of that to them, you know?
Yeah, well, I make them, like, if you're in shape, you look more masculine, you know? Now, that being said as well, with the likes of Jordan Peterson, like, everyone has their demons. So it's not that it's like I was looking at my dad's and like, oh, he's not a man or anything like that. Because he was like very popular. The funeral had like a fucking 2,000 people there. He was a guard and also he had a massive base of people that he would have connected with. So there was a lot of respect. It's two different people. There was like alcoholic dad and then businessman dad and like fun dad and giddy dad, where I'm trying to stay towards that. You know what I mean? Then again, you look at Jordan Peterson, like he had to go to Russia and be put in he was induced in a coma to come off antidepressants. You know what I mean? So even guys that we would deem father figures, they still have demons too. It's how you manage the shit and try to keep it together as best you can. We're all managing shit. I would probably be a little bit addicted to weed, being completely honest. I probably smoked weed every single day for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? And that's not the healthiest habit. I'm aware, like you're taking in smoke through your lungs, but it's still something where I'm like, I'm doing this instead of heroin or alcohol. So I know I'm probably justifying it, but it's still in the same realm of like not too destructive, where I can still be functional, have a normal existence and not ruin everyone's life around me. Whereas alcohol does that, heroin does that, antidepressants that Jordan Peterson was on, that he was incapable of doing anything.
Benzodiazepine.
Yeah, you know, maybe not antidepressants, sorry, whatever it was he was taking. I'm unaware of that kind of realm. But that was destroying his life, you know? So it's trying to go for the good dopamine producing shit and stay with that. That's why the guys that work in the Better Man Project, it's like going to the gym, eating well, feeling good, sleeping well, getting your test levels sorted if they're low, shit like that. That's going to make you feel fucking great. You know what I mean? When you're feeling good, you're less likely to do things and indulge in things that make you feel shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of a deeper thing with the Better Man Project, I suppose. Yeah. It's kind of the surface level is like, oh, 6-pack, woo. But the thing that I actually like to see is like PBs being hit, or I'm feeling fucking amazing, or sex drive's up, I got a new job promotion. Like all these type of things are actual life-changing things. And one guy I was with, actually, Mike Cyril, lost like, I think like fucking 60 kilos or something. And I was like, him doing that, which he might just sign a bit of PT, lost a few pounds, that's how it looks surface level. He probably extended his life by 20 years. Yeah. Because he did that. So when you actually sit back and look at the impact you're actually having on people when they execute on the shit that you give them to do, that's where it becomes fulfilling. And you get a little kind of fire in the belly and a bit excited by it, you know?
Well, I think it's one of the parts sometimes people miss. They break things down into its simplest component like that. Like, oh, Ben just helps dudes get jacked. Yeah. Well, you're giving them back a bit of power. You know what I mean? Like they have more accountability and control and power over how they look, which will have a direct correlation to how they feel about themselves. And then if we're looking at a more practical level, carrying around less excessive body fat is better for your overall health, better for your cardiovascular health, all-cause mortality. You're going to have more energy. And then there's the social proof, you know? Like, this is actually something I was mentioning to Raquel on the last podcast. So I'm cutting now into IPF last chance. And a good few people have been like, you're looking really lean, you're looking good, you know? And it's like, right, was I looking like a fat fuck before? You know
yeah.
But it's that sort of thing that people, I think genuinely people do like to see people succeed. And I think there's a reason we perceive, you know, we see like leanness. Now, again, I think there's obviously degrees to this, like there is for gaining body fat, like, or gaining mass. Like obviously there's a degree to this where you could be like super skinny and really malnourished, or you could be like super overweight and
acceptable kind of, yeah.
So if people can, I think you can exude a form of health, power, confidence, and you people can pick up on it. And I suppose that's what this is. It's a lot of what I see, at least externally, is what the Better Man Project does. It is empowering men to take a lot more control. And I know Jordan Peterson, for example, talks about a lot of responsibility for men and finding meaning in things. But like I think like that, you're giving them a good amount of authority over themselves as well. Like you are in control here, and I know for myself, anytime like I found myself in that scenario, I'll always be willing to say to the person, "Thank you." Like I'm sure I'm sure you get thank you messages.
Oh yeah, got one today. Yeah.
So. From there, like, so as a young dude, do you think then some of what you're doing here is being something that was maybe absent for you when you were younger?
It's not really filling a void. It's more kind of like just, like I'm very, like, live life on my terms. I was never good in school, never went to college for like a week. Like anything that's kind of your usual school, college, 9 to 5, it's just never been my personality at all, you know? So it's a control thing more than anything. I think that's where that stems from as well. Because me and Bonnie whenever I have a joint, we have like deep chats, and I'm like, why am I like this? Like, what am I doing with my life? You know, especially if it's like a mushroom trip, then it's even like, whoa. They're very, very infrequent though. Very effective though for like PTSD and things like that. So I think there probably would have been a trauma from growing up in that environment, and then we were reading things on it where it's like a lack of control over people like that. So anyone that grows up with like an alcoholic parent or drug addict or anything like that, you're trying to control them as best you can so they don't die or they don't do X, Y, and Z out in public or whatever it is, or if there's abusive at home, like that kind of shit, you know. Luckily, I didn't have that extent, and it's a control thing. So I think that a lot of what I am in personality, like my personality, comes from control. I have no control in school, so I'm like, fuck this shit. I have no control. I hate flying on airplanes. I have no control of the plane, so I take a Xanax now. I'm like, fuck this shit. I hate it. Whereas powerlifting, I'm in control of that. My food, my business, my family. I'm not in control of my family. That sounds a bit authoritarian, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like trying to lead them and be a good provider, you know? So I like to be in control of what I'm doing as best I can for the short time we have on earth, you know?
It's cool that you mentioned that, like, because I think that's a cornerstone to relationships is that like you and Bonnie can still now sit down and engage in these deep, meaningful conversations, you know, because I think that's something that people tend to lose with people they're with. So that's really cool to hear. I think that's crazy important for any relationships, whether it's your friendships, but particularly the person you're like, you know, meant to be like locked down with for a while. She has your baby now, you know.
It's probably just me blabbering when I'm stoned though. It's
she's
it's like, okay, man, whatever.
But so then naturally you started in the gym quite young.
14.
Was that you trying to take some form of control then? Like you're like, right, this is something I can have.
Yeah, it's where it actually started was there was guys in school, and I mean when you're in school, I was in an all boys schools in Blackrock, so it's like rugby, fucking beef heads and shit like I take creatine, all that kind of shit. And the big guys would get attention, they'd be on the SCT, which is like the senior cup team and rugby and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of like, you kind of get, and then maybe the ADHD I have ties into that. I was diagnosed that when I was very young, so maybe there's some sort of like, well, everyone likes the idea of you're fucking jacked, and people go, oh, he's jacked. Now, obviously, you said that yourself. Someone complimented you when you got in better shape, you got leaner, and you're like, you definitely felt better when you heard that. You're like, oh, this feels great, you know what I mean? Or you have a nice car, same bullshit, whatever it is. So I saw people getting attention like that from girls, obviously, because it's peak puberty. If you're in shape, girls are going to like that. Guys are going to like the girls, blah, blah, blah. So then that's kind of what got me into it a bit more. I saw guys, and I started training with the guys called the Peters. They own a gym, the physique consultants down in Dunleary. They were obsessed with bodybuilding. Like they were like, they'd be pro bodybuilders. They went on gear and were committed with it. They were the most consistent people I've ever met in my entire life. They dropped off from it and went back into kind of just focusing on personal training, whereas I kept the midlife crisis up. And they were my kind of inspiration. They're a bit older than me. They're much bigger. So I was kind of like, okay, I want to compete with these fuckers. Like that's why I actually started taking steroids when I was 18. Because I was like, geez, you guys are still growing bigger than me. And I went on steroids and I still didn't even grow as quick as I thought I would. I'd be like, I'm going to be fucking Ronnie Coleman in a year. This is savage. Still didn't look like that. So I realized Gen X weren't as dialed in. But it was, just being around that, training fucking balls out, like puking during a session was normal. I thought that was a good thing. Like excruciating Dorian Yates style training and stuff like that from 14 up till about, I think powerlifting when I was like 21 or something, you know. But it was just kind of, that's where it kind of stems from, is the kind of control side of things. And then, just kind of, I don't know, it was just wanting the attention probably from when you're a kid. That's probably where it comes from. You were into wrestling.
Yeah.
There's probably an element of
On a
you kind of
stage,
like, it's being in front of people. I liked that, being in the nightclub and being the big guy, you know what I mean?
I still like the attention. That's why I'm doing this. You
know?
Yeah.
I
think to a degree, everyone wants that, you know? And I think I think a good amount of what everybody does is naturally driven by social status, which comes with its own rewards. Obviously for heterosexual males, that's female attention, you know, and especially when you're young, like, you know, you don't know how to talk to a girl, so I'll get muscles and hopefully she'll talk to me.
That's the element of what it is. Like, because women, they like, when they're 20, that's why you go on Instagram that you fucking see some girl who's 20 with like 1 million followers. She's not exactly like an author or like a fucking Nobel Prize winner or something. I mean, she's just good looking. That's why they're in their prime. Men have to earn that shit. You have to get like your 20s, your 30s, 40s of building whatever it is that you're good. You're a tennis player, fucking WWS or whatever it is, which is your accumulation, your ability to accumulate either wealth or look after yourself. You look like you're in order. That's what makes a man attractive. You know what I mean? That's his status thing. So why men kind of develop their status normally in their 30s and 40s and shit. Joe Rogan peaked when he was like 40 something. Not peaked, he's still peaking, but we only really heard of him kind of when he was in his 40s. He's on Fear Factor and shit before that.
But he's a good example of somebody who like, he was grafting for a very long time in all these different fields, stand-up comedy, UFC commentator, Fear Factor.
Yeah.
And then I think most people know him now as the guy with the podcast.
Yeah.
You know, the Joe Rogan Experience, which is literally the biggest podcast in the world, you know, until now.
Yeah.
But like, this is it. Like, you will have to grind for a long time, I think, until it's like delaying that gratification. You know, it's Jordan Peterson's thing, you know, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. You know what I mean? It's that's the idea. And like Dan and I have talked about this and where the podcast goes. And for me, this is its own reward. Do you know what I mean? I think it's kind of like training, you know? Yeah, competitions are nice. Like intrinsically though, like the extrinsic value is obviously the competition, podium, winning, medals, trophies, clout. But like the joy of just being able to go and train every week. You know what I mean? And it's like this voluntary hardship that we put ourselves through in the moment. Like I'm sure when you were doing that 190 for 15 reps on the squat, I'm sure that like sucked when you were doing it, but now you're the guy that did it, and that's going to propel you further, and you can keep testing where those limits are.
What's next?
Exactly. So just rolling it back, you mentioned when you started using gear then when you were 18. Like how long was there of a time where you were like contemplating this, or was it like just like a snap decision?
Well, it started off with like creatine and shit. You know what I mean? You're kind of like, oh, what's the next? It's like looking under every rock for this magical formula that's like, where's the next level of muscle growth? Where I was barely sleeping, eating fucking chicken breasts all day and training like an idiot. And I just wasn't growing from that. So then I was like, okay, it's obviously because I'm not doing the other thing that they're all doing, you know what I mean? So I started with creatine, and then I was like pro hormones, I think called Havoc or some shit that was like under the supplement thing. You'd be like, oh, and I'd like, it was like a kilo of cocaine in a suitcase at an airport bringing it home. You'd be like so nervous for your mom to find it and all. And then I was 18 and there was other kind of roid heads. I was walking up to guys in the gym, funnily enough, when I was like 16. I was like, I don't care what they say. I was just going to ask them, like, obviously you're on steroids. Can I have some, please? That's basically what I was doing, you know?
Like he's just going to reach into his pocket.
Yeah, you know, well, you'd be surprised. And they were like, oh no, I don't take anything. In my head, I was like, you're so full of shit, like, you know? And then like I knew they were lying, you know? And that's where I kind of was trying to source them originally. But like why I wanted to go on them was more so knowing that the top level lads were doing that, and that was something I had to do to be at that level, because that's what I wanted to do, you know what I mean? With bodybuilding, you know? Now transitioning into powerlifting because I thought bodybuilding got a bit weird. As I got a bit older, I just couldn't. I'm not a person who would want to stand on stage and tense at people. You're not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, the prep I have admiration for. Dieting's a bitch, and getting really lean is a bitch. So I know exactly what that's like.
It's a lot of discipline.
Yeah, but I can never wrap my head around the standing on stage thing. It's just for my personality. Some people love it. They love showboating. That's their thing. I'm just not. I'm very like, if I do a powerlifting competition, I'm kind of like, oh. It's kind of that like.
It's
I hit a PB. I'm like,
walk out, lift, and you're like,
I'm like those guys, and then walk off. So that compliments me more. So that's why I transitioned in that way. But it was like I knew that the top level guys were doing that, and then 2010s was very different to what it is now for powerlifting with regards to steroids. 2010s and 2000s were kind of very like big equipped, like roided to the fucking max, like superhero looking dudes. Whereas now it's like the heroes are 56 kilo females, you know what I mean? Which is, I'm not bashing that, it's just that's how it gravitated. And a lot more people are kind of like, for the females, obviously there's Ray Williams and shit as well, were mutants, you know? But it was very different upbringing, what I was exposed to, and the norm of what excellence was. And that was all the guys were taking steroids that were like that. So I was like, I need to do that. You know what I mean? Whereas now, obviously, I would not recommend it. It's not fun. And I'd say 80% of the people I know that take gear have issues with it. And I don't mean issues where it's like a pimple or something. I mean like psychologically fucks people up. So it's something that it's not. People think it's this easy step. It's like, oh, take this and just recover better and stuff. It creates a whole new personality for you. It is not fun being on them. It is, for sex life, yeah, it's good. I'm not going to lie about that because your sex drive's through the roof. And everyone knows that. If you go on train and shit, you're like a fucking pit bull. But it is something that I do not think, and this isn't some sort of like, oh, stay in school, kids. It's like genuinely, if you have any issues, it's going to amplify the shit out of them by 10. And I know guys have like done dark things to themselves and overdoses, drugs, all this kind of stuff. Steroids said to be in the mix there. There's a bodybuilder I know who I used to look up to recently, and over in Brazil, he's after killing himself because he got detained. Like, this is what I'm trying to say. It attracts these type of people, steroid users, because if there's drugs there, there's going to be other drugs in the mix. Hence why I smoke weed as well, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, you can see how it spills into other areas. And he got detained in Brazil. I had a sentence coming up and then ended up, and this is the guy I looked up to. He had a big Range Rover, giant fucking mutant of a man. I was like, look like Clark Kent. Imagine Mark Stell on loads of steroids like that. And then I'm after hearing that. And I think, again, when you put steroids in the mix like that, it's not good, you know? Yeah. But there is an element of like, do I regret taking them? No, not at all. Because it's something that's still congruent and in line with what I want to do in life. I want to be a top level powerlifter and I want to compete against those guys who have done that. But if someone's listening and they're kind of like, oh, I want to do steroids, it's not creatine. It's not something like a bag of whey you have in your cupboard and you take it when you need it. If you're on it, when you open that box, you're on it for life. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10. Sometimes you can come back maybe do like 1 or 2 little cycles. You know what I mean? But after that, you're in it for life and you're going to be on testosterone for the rest of your life.
So firstly, thank you for being honest and candid about it, because I think it's one of these things people shy away from. Like, you've probably seen the Ronnie Coleman, Joe Rogan episode.
Yeah.
They really, like, I think they were skirting around it for so long. And he kind of mentioned, I did like a little bit. It's like, man, get real. Yeah.
Now, his genetics were...
Yeah, he's outstanding.
There's guys that respond really... The guys who take the most steroids wouldn't necessarily be the top level. You would be surprised. Yeah. It's the top amateur because they don't have the genetics of the top guys. So they're like, oh, I need to do more than them. So that's where a lot more issues will kind of come from. But the same thing, it's, they kind of sugarcoat it. You know, especially if you go back to like early 2000s and you watch some of their videos, they like... they're flat out ass. They're like, oh no, it's like protein and all this kind of shit. Like, they just flat out lie, you know, which I think is just scumbag. If you're taking shit and you're not telling people you're taking shit, and in some way, shape, or form, you either make money from it or people look up to, whatever it is, you're competing like the IPF and you're taking steroids, is scumbag, you know?
Well, I think one thing is, I think people need to be more open about it. Not obviously for that reason, take a bit of accountability for what you're doing, so you're not creating like an unrealistic stereotype, but also because there is such a massive amount of ignorance around steroids. Yeah, like. So naturally, as I mentioned, I work in a commercial gym. I'm obviously a natural athlete, but like, people mention these things about like, oh, and you know, are all any of them lads on steroids? I get asked frequently, do I not like get pissed off competing in ab series against lads on steroids? I'm like, well, I'm voluntarily there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So why would I be annoyed at them for doing what they want to do? Yeah. You know? And I think destigmatizing them first is the best thing, because people don't know anything. They just assume steroids equal bad. Steroids equal cheating. And I'm like, well, not necessarily, because if you have, and it's so wild from the like, why is there a competition where they don't test? Like, so people that are on steroids can compete. Like,
fairly.
How is that good? I'm like, because they're still lifters. Still athletes. So I think the more we open up the dialogue around it, and you talk about like you mentioned yourself, there are genuinely good things that have happened in your life from these things, but you're adding an extra layer of complexity. As you mentioned, it's going to amplify. If you have any underlying issues, those are going to get amplified. But I'd imagine any of the positives you have are going to get amplified as well. So I've heard lads talk about it before. You know, they feel like more cognitive, like much clearer cognitively. They feel more focused, more energy, more aggression. You know, they're more go get them. But like that, they will be that will show its ugly head sometimes. Like we've talked about with some of the abs preps when the lads start their trend cycle, and you know, it's it suddenly becomes an incredibly hostile environment. Where you're just trying to stop lads from killing each other between their sets. So the ability to talk about it, I think, is super important. Now, you've advocated to say, lads, don't do this. It's an awful lot of complication. And I think like that, I was talking to Raquel at the last podcast. She couldn't give me the name of the exact steroid, but apparently use of a certain steroid among young lifters has like gone up by like 200% over the last couple of years. Okay. So it is obviously more available and more people are doing it.
There's a bigger pool of lifters.
Yeah,
as well,
more.
So obviously,
like gym culture has changed so much, even in Ireland in the past like 10 years. Like I remember like training in a Ben Dunn in like 2012, and there was 2 squat racks. In my gym now, I think there's like 22 squat racks. You know? So like even like that, the way we perceive what fitness and training is is changing. I know from working with Setanta College, the way the GAA are training their athletes and all is a lot better now. Like they're actually having them lift, you know what I mean? Which is phenomenal. But like that, I still think there's a good element of like people not knowing about what these things are. And like you've mentioned, don't do it. But like hypothetically, right? If you had a young lad in front of you, he's 18 years old, like yourself, and he's like, I'm going to start doing this. There's no one's talking me out of it. How would you talk to him?
I'd be like, what's the end goal? Because there's the 7 habits of highly successful people. But one of the rules is like, always start with the end in mind. So it's like, what are you trying to achieve here? You know what I mean? Like, what is that you actually want? Is it Instagram fucking clout, or is it like you want to compete in something, whatever it is? So if it's competing, then I'd be a hypocrite to say, I'd be like, think about it. You're going to be on it for life. Like, don't just like sleep on it before you make the decision. That's what I would say. You know what I mean? Because it is a commitment. And if you're still fucking gung ho, I'm not going to make someone make their decision. I'll tell them all the positives and all the negatives. I'll be as honest as possible with it. Now, as well, one other thing is about TRT, which we'll probably touch on in a sec. That's a different conversation. So testosterone is not this demon drug. Abuse of anything is bad. This ties into what I'd say to the young guy. So if the young guy is 18 now, versus I was talking to a 40-year-old, very different conversation. So if someone's 40 and they've low tests and they feel like shit day today, they can't get a fucking boner or can't do anything, then that's a very different conversation. That's a whole other thing over here. But an 18-year-old, you're in your prime, drink your fucking milk, get loads of sleep, and just get stronger. And maybe decide when you're like 22, 23, have a look around then, okay? Push it a lot longer. Anytime you're on the fence of doing it, give it at least 2 years before maybe. That's probably the best advice I could give. Give it another 2 years just before you decide on it, you know? And just remember, it's not fun. It looks like fun. Again, that's why I said earlier on about the entrepreneur. You see the Ferrari and the fucking bimbo and the house and the yacht. You see the muscles and the veins and the serrations or the big heavy lifts. You don't see the fucking mood swings. You don't see the fucking, some guys bawling, crying at home, fucking depression, porn addiction, fucking drug addiction, all these other things that spill in with it because it amplifies everything. So again, if you're prone to something or you have a history of something in your family, it's going to make it a hell of a lot worse. You know what I mean? Your life is going to be tougher with it, even though you might think it looks easier because it makes strength and size come a little bit quicker. It makes your life harder.
Suppose it depends for people where those things are and their like hierarchy of priorities.
Yeah.
And like that, I think it's a tough, like what you want when you're 18 might not necessarily be reflective of what you want when you're 24.
No,
you know?
Yeah.
So I think the wisest thing for young guys listening would be to speak to people like yourself, people who are open about it, honest about it, and will give an unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
I think that is the smartest way to go about it. And I think that generally with these things, it's education.
Yeah.
You know? Like I went to a seminar back in 2019 in Abs with Broderick Chavez.
Okay.
And he talked all through about like everything to do with fucking steroids.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like even down just a molecular level, how it works. And like, so I think I probably know a bit more than the average person now based on that and working with guys like yourself who will be quite candid about it. But like, I still know nothing. I think I literally know that maybe like about 6 inches into the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
But like that, I think going to people who know about it rather than just demonizing these things, because it's like reality. Same with like alcohol consumption. People are going to drink.
Yeah.
So rather than, you know, demonize, like same with weed. Rather than demonizing these things, people smoke weed. So let's talk about pros and cons. Let's talk about potential side effects. Let's talk about how this fits into your life. And maybe you do have the right personality type for it, or maybe you don't. You know? I'd imagine, for example, for somebody like you, like as you mentioned, you like control.
Yeah.
You like, I'd imagine you're quite tightly wound sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine weed is quite complimentary for you to come down at the end
Yin
of the
to
day.
my yang, absolutely. Like that's why I was saying it's like it complements me, as you just said. Yeah, it's nearly not a necessity. It's like Dorian Yates is the same. Like if you ever watched him train, like Blood and Guts, same type of thing. Now he's a big, like not stoner, but he smokes weed. It's a part of him. You know what I mean?
He likes ayahuasca.
Yeah. No, I would lean towards that. I'm very kind of like, if it grows out of the ground, it's probably okay. I remember hearing that in Knocked Up, where if it's a pill or a powder, stay away type of thing. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's another one, like psychedelics. Like I mean, I think that's something, you know, probably demonized like 70 years ago, and we just grow up assuming bad. Yeah. Same when people say like, oh, you know, lifting's bad for your back. You know, it's like, well, you don't even go to the gym. I had a lady before who told me her mom told her to be careful lifting because her womb can fall out.
Yeah, I know, man. You just hear the craziest. Same with psychedelics, same thing. It's media. It's like steroids are bad, shrooms are bad, weeds bad, all sorts of stuff. There are things that are bad, like heroin, like obviously, and abuse of alcohol. I think it's insane that alcohol and cigarettes are legal. I know they make a lot of money. It makes sense from a taxpayers. They get a lot of money from it, obviously, you know. But the fact that other things like shrooms, testosterone, weed and stuff get demonized, and those things are just common. It's just beyond me. You know what I mean? Like if I'm at a family get together and I have like a joint, my mom would kind of like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, it's like I'm like fucking drug addict. You know what I mean? Like,
and
it's
everyone
like
else is necking
fucking getting pissed drunk. You know what I mean? I'm like basically relatively sober.
Yeah,
you know
like,
what I mean?
Alcohol is only ever really a net negative.
Yeah,
like there's no positive outcome to it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like sure, like people get a little bit of a buzz on, but I
Yeah.
think you have to be quite responsible with it. Then, which I think, particularly in our culture, people are not.
Yeah,
you know, like you're a dry shot if you only have 3 drinks. You know,
it's Ireland, man. Yeah, you know,
it's so baked in. Whereas like there's so many other things where like, you know, they're like you mentioned, weed, shrooms, steroids, testosterone. You know, testosterone even as what it's like, even as a synthetic hormone. You know, like people just don't know what it is. They don't know. Hands off. Wash my hands of that. That's bad. Keep that away from me over there. I'm grand
There's
over
a
there.
needle. It's a terrible thing. When they take fucking insulin, diabetics take insulin. It's like they don't even notice. They inject themselves multiple times a day.
Yeah.
If you inject yourself for testosterone, it's like, oh God, you know what I mean? You're in the heroin camp. You know what I mean?
And it's like that. I think it's one of these things that hopefully over time, as education expands, it can become destigmatized and people can learn more about it. And I think, ironically, as more people get into lifting and learn more, I think these things can become destigmatized. Then, so just running back then to when you were 18, you've decided to go on steroids, and you had mentioned that, you know, you were quite an anxious teen. How did this affect that?
Oh yeah, no, it amplified it. Like it got to the point where I had such bad social anxiety, I could barely go up to like a till. I go up to like Dunn stores, and I have to like psych. This is when I moved out when I was like 19 or so, and I had to try to go up to a till on my own, and like I'd have to like psych. I was like going on the fucking food shop. I'm gonna do this. And I was recently single as well, so it's like it was that bad, and then baby steps from there. But when you throw steroids into the mix on top of that, it does amplify anxiety. If you have depression, it'll amplify that. If you have temper problems, it'll amplify that. Whatever you have, it amplifies it. So you need to know that. If you have a temper problem, do not go on it at all. Your house will be covered in holes. That's what is going to happen, you know.
The white kid and the you know, the walls that are like hollow on the inside. I can't remember what they're called. Drywall, you know. Drywall sweating when the white kid comes home angry. Yeah, and like that's why, like, again, I think these conversations are important because I would imagine now, particularly as more people become more aware of things like their mental health, to say, maybe I probably shouldn't put this thing in on top of that, you know? And then what was the turning point with it then? Because obviously you've got a really good handle on things now. So where did that happen? What happened to say, you know what, I'm gonna, like, you got a bit more of a grasp on who you are as a man, who you are as a person, as a partner, I'd imagine as well. What was the turning point?
In what do you mean? As in like...
So you were a young guy amping yourself up to go
managing it better, you mean?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just evolution, man. You're kind of in the thick of it. You just adapt to the surroundings you're in. You know, there was plenty of fuck-ups along the way. It wasn't just smooth sailing at all. It still isn't. There's times I fucking fuck up. I'm too direct in work sometimes at Bonnie. Just like, calm the fuck down, you know? So just spill in. Not that I'm on like a copious amount. I'm on like TRT right now, which is normal dose. If there was a 16-year-old next to me, we'd probably have the same testosterone levels right now. You know what I mean? But you know, it's just... For me, like, because I was already an anxious individual and that made me even more anxious, it also made me even more, how do I not feel like this on a regular basis? How do I manage this better? So it kind of like, in a way, it's weird. It's like a candle burning both ends, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it kind of amplified the, let's solve this. I'm a problem solver. That's what I've always been like. I like to, if someone's body's coming to me with a problem, you know yourself, if you have a partner, whatever it is, it's like they just want to be heard. I'm like, no, but this is the solution. This is the 3-step protocol. Yeah, I'm a man. I will solve this. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it's like. So that's kind of how it tied in. Any area, like I would have gone to like counseling and all this kind of stuff over the years. Just talk. I was like, why do I have a fucking temper? Why do I get anxious? Like, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. And I was trying to find out from like, everyone has childhood trauma, whether they like it or not. There's something. It's obviously the range is different for people. Like some people live in Iraq in a fucking war zone. Some people live in like a fucking Beverly Hills mansion and their parents don't talk to them. There's still trauma from either, you know? So that shapes you as a person, I think. And then the testosterone thrown in with the mix on that, like, can amplify the negative. But at the same time, for me, it kind of also amplified me kind of trying to get my shit together a bit more, you know?
So as time went on, naturally you matured more as a person and probably had more time to sort these things out in your head. So you got better and better and better grasp on it as time went on. And as you mentioned, you've had mentors, teachers, coaches. You've had Bonnie as part of your support network. You threw yourself into your business and your training. You know, you're quite regimented with things. I'd imagine all these things help you to keep a good head on your shoulders with everything you might contend with. You know, we all, as you mentioned, we all have our own deficits in our personality or our shortcomings. I completely agree. And I do agree as well. Like, I think everyone goes through hardship in their childhood. And as you mentioned, it could be a rich kid. It could be somebody who's living on the poverty line. It doesn't matter. We still only have context for what we've experienced as children. You know? So I completely agree there. And I think that's why having like something set up like that, like the Better Man Project, or like, you know, demonstrating that people can be incredibly strong in powerlifting, but also stay in very good shape. I think even just leading by that example, even though you don't necessarily have to vocalize, just being it. You're walking the walk.
Yeah.
I think that is actually quite a powerful thing.
That's huge as well. Like a lot of the guys I would listen to, that I would look up to and want to hear what they have to say, if they're not doing it themselves, I don't give a shit. Like it's like if you've been handed wealth or whatever it is, I'm just like, whatever, I don't give a fuck. Whereas I was only talking to Bonnie about this last night. We were discussing that, saying that if someone's given something, like Donald Trump, for example, he was given millions as a kid, turned it into billions, which is still kind of like, well done, you did something. But there's still a gigantic, weak foundation there where you didn't go through all the hardship of making that first million. You know what I mean? It's the same type of thing. So you look at steroids kind of as the same thing, I suppose, where it's like this weak foundation, but all it actually is creating a bigger problem down the road because it's harder to get stronger the stronger you get type of thing, you know?
Well, like you mentioned at the beginning that like when you were initially training, you were training to the point of making yourself sick. You were just eating chicken breast, weren't sleeping. Like you could take all the gear in the world, but if you're not doing the same things that natural athletes do to make progress, you're still probably not going to make a whole pile of progress.
Oh yeah.
You know, so everything's still like that. Yeah, sure. It's like you're giving yourself that little, you're giving yourself that bump, that push, that extra bit, that extra, like, I don't know what percent, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%.
Yeah.
But you still have to have everything else checked off. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
If you go into any normal gym, you'll see, I guarantee you, there'll be more people there on steroids that do not look like they're even on them versus guys that look like they're on them.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I've had a guy who is in my gym on gear accuse me of being on gear because I'm fitter and stronger than him.
Yeah. Probably bigger too.
So he just doesn't like it. But I'm like, I work harder than you and I recover better than you.
You know?
Like I've had it out with him. I've showed him what I do for programming, how I prioritize sleep, how much I cook, things like that. Like, but I think that's kind of a thing. I think people don't get that. Like, I think one of the things from childhood is like, if you don't learn even to do things like do a bit of cooking, prep meals ahead of time, they're like, oh, I spend an hour cooking. I could be watching Game of Thrones, you know? Like, I think that's something people have such a hard time learning, especially when they become adults. They're like, what do you mean I have to like cook for like 2 days?
Yeah, but it's a cushy world we live in now, man. You know, people are fucking soft as shit. Not that I'm soft in certain areas. Like, I'm playing with Dolly, I'm like a big baby, you know what I mean? So it's not like I'm just like all the time. But there is an element of like being able to expose yourself to things that make you uncomfortable is essential for growth. You know,
voluntary hardship.
Yeah, you know,
you absolutely have to. And like that, it's that thing. It's like, yeah, sure, maybe you don't want to go home and spend your evening cooking and prepping meals, but now this will feed into the long-term goal. You might not get the gratification immediately, but you'll delay it for, it could be weeks and months. But eventually, you're going to be looking in the mirror, having done all this, and go, "Damn, I look much better. My clothes fit way better." People like me more, and people do generally have more time and treat people better when they look good. And I know people don't really like that reality. They don't like that, like, well, why should I be treated any different whether I've like a six-pack or I have a gut? And it's like, well, your value as a person isn't different, but it is indicative of something in your character if you can't take care of yourself. Now, here's the thing. I do think naturally people they might have been grandfathered into it as kids. Maybe their parents had very poor education or nutrition. Maybe they come from a family who that their food environment has always been there's an overabundance of availability, and like that, it's probably not your fault up until the day you move out. And maybe your work, like, it's why, like, I think we see this all the time on Instagram. You always celebrate the people that are going to the gym who maybe aren't in great shape now, but geez, you're doing something about it. Well done. You are taking proactive steps. And it's generally the people they're worried about judging them are the people who are going to clap for them the most. You know?
It's like everyone has a different starting line, you know what I mean? Exactly. And it's as long as you're fucking moving forward, that's all that matters. Because so many people don't. They just kind of accept where they are. And that's why I get like that as well. We get complacent. Everyone does, you know? But then I kind of have this little kind of, obviously I'm talking to my inner bitch where it's like, Dave Goggins said it. He says he wakes up on the side of the bed every, you know, he's like this extreme marathon runner guy.
Listen to his audiobook.
Yeah, everything is mental with him. He's top fucking type A type of guy. And you think it all comes easy from him. He says he was on Joe. He's talking to, he said he sits on the edge of his bed every morning. And he's like, fuck me, I got to go on this fucking run and prove all these idiots wrong again, blah, blah, blah. For him, it's hard to stick to it too. So it's not like everything that we do to try and grow and get better, money, muscle, whatever the fuck it is that you're doing, building the family, it's all hard work to do, but it's like, the ability to show up and just keep doing it, and then because again it goes motivation where it's exciting, then it's discipline where you kind of do it even when you don't really feel like doing it, you keep doing it, then it becomes habit. It's like brushing your teeth as a child. Parents like, go in and brush your teeth, like, fuck off. And then we didn't say fuck off, you know what I'm saying? Eventually you start doing it over and over again. It's the same type of thing, and you fall into that habit camp. Then it's so much easier to add habits to that, because you can do it in one area, i.e. say your physique. That's what I did first. I was shit in school, shit at work and everything, lazy as fuck, just PlayStation all day. But the gym was always my base. And then the personality trait with that of showing up, eating my meals each day, doing things to get better at that, carried over to the business. carried over to relationships. And then you can just emulate that in everything. Little bouts of progress each day. And that's all it is. Like, look at anyone who's successful, doesn't matter what level they're at, same process. You know?
Yeah. And you can see that in you. Like, I mean, you've obviously talked through some of the hardships you've had to overcome along the way. And I'm sure even like every now and then there's just like shit scenarios to pop up. But from an external standpoint, you've managed to put together such a great day-to-day life, you know, with your own business. You've got a great family. You've got a great training crew. You've got a great support network around you. And I think that like there's people that might be like 20 steps behind you going, geez, I'd love to have something like what Ben has.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes I don't think people, again, they lose that. You had to build all that.
I have that still though with other guys. Like I would look at Phil making fucking millions. I'm like, whoa, what's he doing? You know what I mean? It's like, and he has guys. My mentors have mentors that they look at. Their mentors have mentors. It never ends. That never stops. So wherever you're at, it's always going to be there. We're like, I want more. You know, it's not wrong. It's just humans are like that. We try to accumulate as much as we can of everything. It's so we can survive winter. That's what's embedded in us.
For sure. I've actually heard that as a particularly like for men with like the whole like trying to be a provider. It's like you want to generate so much. You want so much utility and so much extra that you can support others. And that's what being like a leader, a father, a partner and all is. You want to be able to provision and protect your woman or whoever and your kids or whatever whoever those important people are to you. And I think that's like actually quite admirable. In the same way, like, you know, like other people, like their whole buzz is to be a caregiver and to support it, like in the way Bonnie supports you. She takes care of the baby. And I think that like synergistic relationship is amazing when you can kind of find what works for you as an individual. And like obviously those gender roles can change and reverse and whatever people want. But like I think it's cool that you can see that as far as you've come, and you can sometimes like that stop and smell the roses. You're a successful dude. You know, you're a big jack dude who does really well in powerlifting, well known for helping people online, and then but you still have more to go. You know what I mean? For you, there's always going to be a new peak. And I don't think anyone can ever really, I don't think you'll ever get to a day you go, yeah, that's enough. You always want that bit more. And I think that's one of the best things about it, because once you start down that road, and I think that's the hardest for most people, you know, that thing like a journey of 1,000 miles begins at one step. Like I think the hardest thing for people is just taking that one teeny little step. And that is what gets that little tiny pebble rolling into a rock, into a boulder, into a whatever. And
you can mimic it, man. Like it's again, that one step is the bitch. Don't get me wrong. Like, it took me ages to do like my PT course. I put that off for years. I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm not a person. I'm not standing there watching people lift weights. Blah, blah, blah. It's not my personality. I want to be a bodybuilder. My mom was kind of like, oh, you're not going to college. Like, who's going to pay you to bodybuild? Like, what the fuck are you doing? You know. But it is that momentum. And when that momentum, it's a snowball effect. When it goes down the hill, it's just fucking rolling, man. There's nothing stopping that shit once the train's going, you know what I mean?
And like that, once you kind of get one thing set up and it's kind of running and you've got it in the bag, you've built the habits. As you mentioned, it went from motivation to discipline to consistency. You're consistent and it's a habit. You kind of get it running. It's working well. That's like kind of what I did with online coaching. I'm sure you're similar. And then that's how I started doing this. I'm like, right, I can definitely take on something else now.
Yeah, man.
And I want to get something else going. And that's why I'm super excited to be doing this. But there's a couple of other things I want to touch off before we wrap up. So I know you and I have talked a little bit about, and I think it's very important as more people come into powerlifting now like that. I think it's changed, like you said, from the big equipped super heavyweight dudes to you get like even if we look at the Irish Powerlifting Federation, the most stacked male divisions are the under 83s, under 93s, and 105s. Like they're most average men from whether it's like 5'5" to like 6'3" or whatever the average height range is. They're always going to fall into those average weights. So as more people come into it, and I know it's and it's one thing I love about powerlifting, you don't need to be particularly good at anything to do powerlifting. The skill floor is very low. You can come in at almost any level. And then it takes a long time to master, obviously, which is the best thing about it. But like that, I do think sometimes there is too much of an emphasis on, you know, just, you know, you're lifting and just sitting around and, you know, you're just, people just shovel food in because it's got to get bigger, you know? And I think like you're a good representation of what a really well-rounded, solid powerlifter looks like, you know?
Okay.
Like, but that's what I mean. That's why I've said it before. I've said it to other people. I've said it when I was doing commentary at Abs Pro, you know, like for you, obviously, like controlling your body fat's important. Having a good, well-developed physique is important. And I know you're a big advocate for getting your blood work done and things like that, you know? I know, as I mentioned, you do your rucking and things like that, like all these things, looking after your heart and your lungs. Like, why do you think it is in powerlifting that we miss that? Why is it that it's, you know, just sitting around for like 2 hours doing squats and then go over and half-ass some leg extensions? And
just justifying it, you know what I mean? Like if you look at any top level dudes, their work capacity is insane. Shane Hunt, for example, I don't know if you hunt powerlifting. A little bit younger than me, squats fucking 1,000 something total, like it's insane. Goes rucking all the time. Same type of thing. So it's like, I don't know, just the hard work kind of accumulates over time. And I think people just kind of justifying it basically. It's easy to sit and eat fucking Domino's pizza every single night and do 1 or 2 reps and head home and pile on a ton of body fat and then justify that excess body fat as adding to your total. Where I have gained 30 kilos before, total and fucking budge. Then I got in shape, got fit, got healthy, brought up my work capacity, my conditioning, athletic. Like we're meant to be athletes, not couch potatoes. Like, you know what I mean? And your physique's representation of that. If you're fit looking, you're obviously fit. You know what I mean? Within relative, But the carryover with that then is you're going to have a better total when you're in better condition. Yeah. You can handle it better.
Like we talked about, it probably is that initial drop off that scares people.
Yeah.
But like, I know for me, especially as I like get older and I branch out into other interests and I train a wider variety of people, like I'll still always be in powerlifting. I love powerlifting. I love competing, but like things like my body fat percentage or like the rough gauge and what I see in the mirror. I know you're a bit one very easy. Like I've picked up a lot of cool little things from you on Instagram. I like the idea of like you're okay to keep bulking if you can still kind of see your abs.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so that's exactly how I did it. So I was bulking through 2021 and I was like, right, just got to the end of the year. It's like, right, the abs are getting harder to see in the morning now. I was like, right, I need to start dialing that back in. Yeah. And it's actually quite a good gauge. It actually is such an easy, predictable gauge. And like you've mentioned with your own guys, and I agree with this as well, get yourself in shape first and then we can look at building. Yeah. Because it's a much harder position to build from if you're already carrying excess fat. It's what I'd say to my clients, like, I don't know whether to cut or bulk. I'm like, if you're asking yourself that question, it's probably cut.
Yeah.
I'd imagine you and Ken, you probably give your guys some cardio and things to do as well.
Hit cardio, things like that. Whatever they enjoy doing is the best plans when they're going to stick to. So if they like to swim, they'll swim. Whatever it is, like horse riding, whatever there is they're in, they'll do. But it's getting your condition, get fit, get healthy, and then you're going to perform better. You're like your body works better when you're within. I'm not saying 6% body fat like a bodybuilder, but 12% or so, maybe 12 to 15. You're going to recover better. Your adaptions are going to be even better. Like everything is going to happen better from that, you know what I mean, by getting in shape alone. So that's the trade-off of losing a little bit of strength by losing a bit of weight, taking off fat. The rebound out of that. So it's like 2 step forward, 1 step back. It's like the rebound you get out of that by taking that weight off and your health getting better to a degree. If you lose like 80 kilos, obviously it's going to significantly go down, But taking off the unnecessary fat, holding on to as much muscle as you can, rebounding out of that by gaining weight into the competition. But that's why I always recommend post-competition for powerlifters 9 times out of 10 is unless you're skinny as shit, very different conversation. But if you're carrying fat, take it off after a competition. You get fuckers trying to like diet down to comps. I've done it as well. I've dieted down to comps. Worst fucking decision ever. You're gonna have a shit meet. You're gonna feel like shit, perform like shit, be weak as shit. And then on the day you're like, what happened? It's like you're lost weight. You're in a deficit. So if you take off weight 4 to 6 weeks out, do not take off any more weight. Okay, if you have to water cut at the end, different conversation entirely. But do not be in a deficit going up to the competition. After the comp, get in shape, get your work capacity up, get fit. That's what's going to make you a better lifter. Because you have to. It's not just 3-week peak. A lot of powerlifters think just like 12 weeks or whatever the fuck. Did I say 3 week? 12-week peak, and it's like that's all I'm doing. I'm a powerlifter now for the next 3 months. Then after that, it's back to chilling. You know what I mean? It's a year of prep in your head of like, okay, I'll get in shape now for the next 6 months, bring down the body fat. Then I'll build into it, get a little bit stronger that period of time, and then peak into it. And that's how I look at it. After comp is my immediate next prep for the next one.
I've actually seen a post saying something very similar to this. The reason most powerlifters don't progress is they only take the last 6 to 8 weeks prior to a comp seriously. They're bullshitting around the rest of the time. Completely agree. I agree. As you said it to me at Abs 9, I had cut into the comp and I didn't have a great day. And you were like as a natural, like you need to maybe stop the cut and maybe 12 weeks out. You know what I mean? Like give yourself some time to come into it strong. And that's stuck with me since. And I do feel better for following. Like that's what I said. And that's one thing I suppose, like if I was to highlight for you, is that like all these small little pieces of advice I get, and you're right, like a lot of them, they're context, obviously like you can get, most advice isn't just like this is a blanket statement, but it's like understand they do come with a degree of context. Anytime I've implemented something you've said to me with the context of who I am and where I'm at, it always works. So thanks for that. Like
no worries, no worries.
So the last couple of things I just want to touch on real quick. You mentioned about your guys like in swimming. I know you've been doing some sea dipping.
Yeah.
How's that been going? Because I know that became massive. You're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
That became massive over COVID for most people, but especially now as it gets colder. Like, is it like that like massive adrenaline and cortisol, and then like there's that like you feel it's fucking awful for like the 5 minutes or whatever you're in, and then you get out and your body's like obviously regulating everything again. Is it always worth that hit at the end? Like,
it ties into I can't remember the name of the book I'm reading now as well. It's the one I read before about I can't remember what it is now, but it's to do with like, again, finding discomfort. And like, I'm kind of like, okay, going to the sea. Like, I'm not like, yeah, let's go into the sea. It's relaxing and fun. It's fucking brutal. Like, you know, you're shivering, your balls are gone. Like, everything's gone, you know, everything. You're numb. And the drive home, like the whole time. But then it's like euphoric nearly when you're in it after the first like 2 to 5 minutes. I have a guy who I go with, Sean Kelly, he's my friend from school. And we go down and we just kind of sit there first 2 minutes, like, okay, like that, like. But then it's like Wim Hof, same type of thing. It's a bitch at the start, but then there's this like benefit from not just like, does it help with my recovery? Maybe. Like, I don't really give a shit if it does or not. It's more so, can I stick with this shit even when it's like February, there's potentially snow on the ground. It's going to be fucking numbing, you know what I mean? And you can still go and do that. It's like, then when you're having a shitty day, being like, oh, I don't know if I can follow through this. Like, but I can do that.
Yeah.
That was actually one thing I learned from my dad, which was one of the biggest lessons. Is that I had my junior cert, and this ties into what I was saying there. I was puking my ring up real bad, like I had veins all over my face. I was vomiting so much. And I had my junior cert, and he was like, "Look, just like still go in and try and do it. Like, you prepare. Not that I did great or anything, but he's like, just still go in and do it. Like, and anytime I was doing the exam, puking into a bucket, like leaning down, okay, and I was in my own room and all. I looked like I had fucking weird disease. I saw people looking at me, being like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know, yeah." And I was kind of walking past. Went into the exam and whatever, and then the principal was like, "Oh, well done, like Jesus, you fucking went in and did it, like holy shit." But I'll never forget that. It's like, that was the lesson of like, if I can feel like shit during that, and even during my last prep, I was dying of a flu, like real bedridden shit. Like, I was like, fuck, I'll just go in and fucking I hit a PB, I did a 320 squat double, and I was sitting down for the whole session. I was in bits, but I still went and did it. And that always resonates with me when you can do really hard shit like once or twice and you really don't fucking want to do it. This is the motivational bullshit. It's just executing and doing the fucking thing. Then you have something to bounce off as like swimming in the sea. That's tough as shit. Puking up during your junior cert and actually doing the exam and sitting there and finishing it off the best you can. You have something to bounce off where like, that was fucking miserable. This thing that I'm uncomfortable doing now is nowhere near as bad as that. So this is nothing. You know what I mean? So it kind of ties into that. When you do hard shit, everything else kind of gets a bit easy. And swimming in the sea, everything's shrinking on you and fucking shivering in your bones, man. Like, you get in a hot shower after, and it takes like half an hour before you feel normal again. You're still shivering in boiling hot water, like, you know.
That takes a lot of mental grit to do that now, especially as we come into like the later half of the year.
Yeah.
So and I suppose it stands to the importance of having somebody there to keep you accountable. You mentioned your school friend, like, and I can really appreciate like that. Like, if you can overcome this thing where you're voluntarily going to this beach to jump in freezing cold water, you know, whereas, and you know, that is its own reward. Just doing it is what it is, you know, and then feeling good after. But like, you might, like, I know I have those days, you're like, fuck's sake, you know? But then these are things that you are like, oh, do I want to get up and do I want to go here and do I want to do this? It's like, but these are all things that help you grow and get better. And they're things that are actually going to have that benefit down the road. Whereas going and torturing yourself in the sea, you have to do it for its sake. But I think that gives you that good bit of like mental fortitude, you know. So mad respect for that, because like I wouldn't do it.
No, it doesn't. It sounds bad. It's not as bad, but it's the whole point is that like it's something that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Again, puking in the bucket's uncomfortable. Like, I had a terrible fear of roller coasters, like horrible fear, man. I went on the one when I was like 16. I was having like a cigarette, shaking, getting on. I was like, how do you fucking do this? When I was actually on it, let it pee a little. I was like, I'm gonna piss my pants. I'm this scared. Went on it and I got off and I was like, that was fucking grand, like. And now I go on every single roller coaster you can think of, whereas before it was like, I'd have birthday parties, a place wouldn't go near anything. So it's that exposure to a bit of stress and being in the shit. Do you then have a reference point of like, I did it before, it's fucking grand.
But do you think that was the element that control and liking being in control?
Yeah, same thing probably.
Around, like,
you know.
I had that before my first roller coaster as well. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I think it's like that animal side of your brain. You're like, this is dangerous. Why am I putting myself in danger? But it's like, you're kind of, it's like why people like horror movies and things. They're exposing themselves to a safe amount of like cortisol, adrenaline spikes, you know, and then they get the dopamine hit at the end. But like I completely agree. I think it's once you get past that anticipation anxiety and you actually engage, it's like, it's never as bad as you thought. Like, that's how I felt when I got like my eyes lasered. You know what I mean? Everybody, like, because everyone always has an opinion on it, but knows nothing about it. And I can tell anyone the whole thing was grand. Super, super easy, super, super fun. So I'm a big advocate for that as well. Just put yourself in those scenarios that make you uncomfortable, because usually it's never going to be as bad as you thought it was. You know?
No, unless it's like, obviously, like disclaimer, like Russian roulette or some mental shit.
Maybe
like,
don't do that.
I won't get addicted to this bit of heroin. You know? It's like something that's kind of like, can actually fuck you up, have a limitation.
Maybe like we're talking roller coasters and things.
You know.
But so right, wrapping things up here, what is happening for you next? I know you're currently in this big massive building phase with the lads. Is this all for next April? Abs 12.
Yeah.
You're doing Clash?
Yeah, I'm the Dave versus Goliath type of thing.
Yeah.
I'm the smallest one doing it, which is weird. Like first meet I've ever. Normally I'm the heavy guy at it, like, and this is the first meet where it's like literally I'm the little skinny bitch. You know what I mean? So it should be fun. Going up against them. So if I can out total a few dudes, I'm not like being realistic. I'm not expecting to win because this guy's getting like 1,050 totals there. I'd still like to get 930. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to add 150 kilos plus to my total.
Well, let's see them do it on an abs platform.
Yeah, that too. You know, so there's a few areas where I have a bit of an advantage with, where I know the standard of judging and the level that we lift at in terms of like efficiency, how it looks, depth, all that kind of shit being hit. So there's no fear with that. Like I rarely miss lifts unless it's like full blown weakness. It's never like depth or some bullshit like that. You know, because we have that dialed in through Jay's coaching and the ab standard and everything. So that is to my advantage a little bit. But I'm doing the same approach with the 900, the first 900, where I took down some body weight. So right now I'm in a bit of a deficit. 118 now, probably go down to like whatever 114 or something, nice and lean, and then grow time come maybe December or so. 3 months out, basically, December, January, going into April.
Yeah.
You know?
So with Clash of the Titans, I'm sure most people that are going to be watching this episode will have some degree of understanding what it is, but because this one is decided by total, and you know, while you're still going to weigh in, it's not done on dots, it's not done on a formula. Do you think that's going to be a game changer for you?
Like honestly, I think if you can do a water cut properly, they don't really negative. People hate water cuts; they don't know how to do it properly. If you know how to do a water cut, like I've done shitty water cuts where I'd go from a water the way in and have McDonald's after and be like, oh, why do I feel like shit? Like I'm just eating fats. You know what I mean? There's nothing replenishing me. I've solved that problem now. So performance wise, like doing a water cut, they're miserable, but like I don't think they should not affect your lifting at all. You know what I mean? But so am I thinking, am I going to have a massive jump in total because I'm not doing a water cut? No, because I know how to do a water cut properly. But it will be nice not having to do one. That's being completely honest. Where the weight of you on the day is kind of irrelevant. But that being said, I'm not going to be a fat fuck. I just gain 50 kilos now and then. I could. And it'd be fun eating all that pizza, but not doing it. It's at a detriment. I've seen lads gain 50 kilos in body weight, man, and literally they have not moved. Their totals barely moved. Yeah. You know what I mean? They might get a bit of leverage in a squat or something, but that's about it.
Well, you've got yourself quite regimented and dialed in, so I'm sure you've got a plan you can execute the whole way up.
Yeah.
I'd imagine you're probably not going to make predictions for yourself, but do you foresee yourself breaking that 900 total?
Yeah, no, I actually wrote down yesterday I want 930. So what I did with the 900, I wrote that down like a year ago as like a to-do list thing. And when you have like a to-do list thing, I did 325 double and deads. Like I've done that before, but I wrote it down. And when I wrote it down, it felt like it's done nearly. Because when you have a to-do list and you tick things off, it's like habitual. So I think when you write it down and you know what you're going to be doing in advance, rather than just being like, oh, play it. Like you can keep the number to yourself. I'm not saying you have to announce it to everyone, but like I'm going to be the best powerlifter of all time. It's ridiculous. Like, but if you write down your goal, I think it just like sends a signal to your subconscious of going like, I don't know, like he's going to do this. You know what I mean? It makes the belief of it far more. And then placebo is a potent thing, man. It works. Sure. And that worked for my 900. So I didn't do it the last two comps. But last night I was like, that was another thing I didn't do. So I actually wrote down like 930. So again, this is hopefully future Ben gets to listen back on this with a big smile on his face, see what happens. But I think writing it down definitely helps.
Well, I mean, first things first, I think like, as much as people like cacal over, I think a degree of like manifestation or visualization does genuinely help people, because a massive amount of what we do, and I think this is the element people miss, especially when you're walking onto a platform, how you approach it mentally completely changes things. Like I've had lifts, I know you're a bit more of a reserved lifter as well. Like I've had lifts that I've gone out for where I have already said to myself, I'm going to smash this. So I'm going to pull 300 for the first time.
Yeah.
Whereas I've had lifts where I go out I just need to get this over. And it's dog shit.
That's what happens, man. Yeah. It's like you just want to go home.
Yeah. You're letting yourself down before you even get out there.
Yeah.
You know? So I do think that is obviously a massive piece of it. And then carrying that over then, what is happening next, or where are we going with the Better Man project? I know you said getting 200 dudes over the next while, like that's a short to medium term. But so as we come into 2023, can we just expect to see the business continuously grow?
Yeah, that's the plan, man. Just
you recently got the ebook as well, is that right?
Yeah. You might see Instagram ads thrown out. Everyone.
I've liked it on Facebook.
Thanks very much. We have that plenty of downloads coming from it. But it's just like there's so much bullshit in the fitness industry that I just want to kind of clear it up and be like, say you fucking do it.
It's a lot of static.
There's so much shit. Like, don't get me wrong, like if you enjoy calisthenics, do that. If you enjoy body, like obviously stick to something you can do, but there actually has to be a tangible result coming from the time spent. Otherwise, you're just exercising. And exercise is okay. I'm not passionate, but I like to train. I like to progress. And like if you're going to the gym and you're people join a gym to look better and feel better and perform better, regardless of the goal. We're trying to get stronger, jacked, whatever it is. All that time, energy you're spending, the gym fees, everything, and you're just meal after meal and nothing's happening. And I've been there myself. Like, get someone who's fucking done it. It doesn't have to be me. It can be anyone else that you resonate with. You might like a ballet or some shit, whatever it is that you're into. Go to someone who's done it listen to what I have to say, job fucking done. You're going to get there 10 times quicker, man, you know? So that's the biggest piece of advice from that would be seek a mentor in a realm or a position of where you want to be in the future. If you see your future self there, go to them if they've been there because they know how to fucking do it.
Yes.
They're going to skip all the bullshit they had to go through, all the mess ups and everything. You're getting a clear road of how to do it. And now tying into the manifestation thing you were saying there, speaking things into existence, and what's that book called again? There's a book that everyone goes on about. It's like manifesting it basically. I remember that it's gone.
Not The Secret, is it?
That one, yeah, where it's like you have to execute. So it's like, yes, you need a plan, but you have to fucking do the thing. That's where a lot of people, again, the entrepreneur thing I was saying. Yeah. Where it's like, it's you're sitting down here making a fucking podcast, getting this shit going. You're doing it, not talking about doing it. You know what I mean? A lot of people talk about doing shit, they don't follow through. So you need a game plan. You need someone to kind of help you to get there. Again, the best guys of all time and nearly everything have mentors that have guided them there. Same thing. But you have to execute. You have to do this shit. You have to fuck up and keep going forward while you fuck up. Yeah. You know?
You've said it many times on your social media. Something I fully agree with and resonate with is there's an awful lot of people that can talk the talk, but you need to work with people that walk the walk.
Yeah, they're doing both. Yeah,
they know what they're talking about and have been there. And our job as coaches is we've navigated the pitfalls, we've fallen into a few, and we're going to be your guides. Yeah. We're going to say, don't worry about that. Don't worry about this. This brings you to where you want to go. And like you said, if people have a plan and they execute, we can help tidy up the margins, but it does really come down to them to implement the work, but we can make that process way more streamlined. And I think you've definitely achieved that for yourself with how you've improved over time as a powerlifter, as a coach. You are a great demonstration of physical health and well-being. You're a great representation of how strong people can get. And as I said, I really appreciate your candid openness about your drug use.
No worries. Yeah. It's important people know, you know. I wish I heard some of this shit when I was a bit younger, you know. A lot of people tend to, as you said, Ronnie Coleman dancing around it. It's better just say it as it is, you know.
For sure. And that's the thing. I think the more candid we can have conversations around these things, like I know like mental health's a massive thing now. People are generally talking about it a lot more. It's not as stigmatized. And I think if we can provide the same thing for athletes who find themselves in that enhanced position, it can maybe move the dial in the correct direction where people can make better, more informed decisions on if it's something they want to do or not. You know, so thank you very much for joining us, Ben.
No problem.
Thanks very much. My pleasure.